So today we're looking at balancing of masses. And in balancing of masses, first of all, in the previous recording, the other video, we talked about how important this is when you consider applications like when wheels have to be balanced. So you have the machines that are using the principles of balancing of masses, they get them from the calculations that are done just here. And here is where we also said that when you talk about this, there is what is known as static balance as well as dynamic balance. In static balance, it just deals with masses that are at rest. And then dynamic balance deals with masses that are in motion. And of course, you also realize that there are several methods that can be used, but all of them are there to ensure that a body is balanced statically as well as dynamically. And in the same topic, we just talked about balancing masses without considering the radius, meaning without focusing too much on the radial distance for each of those members. But the topic that we're having today will respect that aspect as well. So here is what we're looking at. So this type of balancing of masses, we said all the forces, when you multiply the products of mass and radius in any given plane, you're supposed to get a 0. Then you say this is balanced. If it's not balanced, then you're going to get a different number other than the 0. Whether in the static or dynamic, that principle has to be respected. Now, for us to get this, it does not work out well if we just discuss the principles and we end there. So like I said, today, we're looking at an aspect where we consider also the radius from the center. Now, here's a typical example we're looking at. The example says a rotor has 3 masses whose magnitudes are 1.5, 0.8, 1.4, and these are at radial positions of 0.2 meters, 0.8 meters, as well as 1.2 meters. The angles at which they are positioned are 0, 60, and 150. Now, this having been done, the question is asking us to find the magnitude of the imbalance, as well as the position and the mass required at 0.7 meters, meaning at a radius of 0.7 meters. How much mass should we put there? And at what angle should we put this mass? Then later on, we should also calculate the out of balance force, given that this rotor is running at 2,000 revolutions per minute. Now, to begin with, we just produce or rearrange the data. First of all, we have our mass 1 there, which is 1.5, mass 2, 0.8, and the third mass 1.4. We rearrange this in form of the diagram. R1, the one we can see, corresponds with M1, and it's at 0 degrees. R2 corresponds with mass number 2, positioned at 60 degrees. The third one, which is radius number 3, is positioned at 150. Then after that, we can now, since we've now arranged these according to the angles, we now need to find the horizontal component as well as the vertical component. Then later on, we combine them to find the amount of imbalance or the amount of out of balance force. So first, before you even do any calculation, you have to make sure that the angles are correct. In this case, I can safely countercheck that these angles are correct, because that's according to how those were provided. Theta 1, 0, theta 2, 60, and theta 3. Yeah, this one is supposed to be 3. Theta 3 as 150 degrees. Then we are now starting with the horizontal component. So the horizontal component we're going to see cos. Meaning, I multiply MR cos theta for each of the three masses. Now, first of all, mass 1 was 1.5, radius 1 was 0.2, and the angle is at 0. So that's now M1 R1 cos theta. So M1 R1 cos theta, M2 R2 cos theta, M3 R3, and also cos theta 3, each of them according to the angles. So the first one, the angle was 0. The second one, the angle is 160 degrees. The mass is 0.8 kg. The radius also 0.8 meters. The third has a mass 1.4. So we're multiplying by 1.1 the mass, and the angle is there, 150 degrees. Now, having done that, we can combine them vectorically and get our horizontal component, which in this case comes out to be 0.713 kg meter. We're multiplying the mass by the distance or by the radius. The SI unit for mass is kilograms. The SI unit for radius is meter. So that's how come we have the kg meter. Then as for the vertical component, we proceed. It gives us V is given by 1.5 multiplied by 0.2. In other words, what you're able to see there is that the same things we have up there are reproduced here, except wherever there is cos, we substitute with sine, because now we're dealing with the vertical axis. Then from there, we can now get, when you do this for V, the answer is 1.324. So that's for the vertical one. So looking at the working, you already have H, you also have V. Then you can now combine them. In this case, we are going to use Pythagoras theorem to find our imbalance. How much out of balance force are we having? So from there, I can see that V squared plus H squared under the root. Remembering that the vertical and the horizontal, they meet at right angles and normally make a triangle, a right angle triangle. Then hence, we have this formula here. So when you look at V, V was negative 0.713. H was 1.324. So we just square them. And of course, when you enter that in your calculator, you should be able to get 1.504 kg meters. This is our out of balance or amount of imbalance that we are going through. And I have to emphasize here that if this system was balanced by any chance, V should have given us a 0. H was also supposed to give us a 0. They're not worries about it. If you see that your answer is coming out something else other than 0, or the two numbers are the same, it simply means the whole system is not balanced. And you can proceed to find how much mass you need for it to balance, which is now where we are headed to. So here, we've said the resultant or out of balance, which is represented by mass 4, product of mass 4 by radius 4, M4R4, right here, is 1.504. Let's go back again and check our working. In our working, we're having R4 at 0.7 meters. If R4 is 0.7 meters, then we also have M4R4. Then we should be able to get mass number 4. So all we do is just make M4 the subject. Then M4 will be equal to M4R4 divided by R4. If you check where we're coming from, we already have the product M4R4 came out as 1.504. Then radius number 4, where we're supposed to put this mass required to restore balance, is 0.7 meters. So 1.504 divided by 0.7, there. 2.149, which is almost like 2.15 kilograms. So with that, we now get to the angle. With the angle, we're using tan, and we combine V and H. So theta is given by tan inverse of V over H. Theta is equal to tan inverse of V over H. And in this case, our V is 1.324. Now, 1.324 divided by negative 0.713. H, remember, H was a negative, V was a positive. So which simply tells us that the answer we are going to get will end up being a negative. The issue here is that you have negative 61.697, telling us that you are not yet at the answer. You haven't yet found the answer because the answer is supposed to be in the other quadrants. And that's where now this illustration comes in. We have the first one, talking about the 4 quadrants. Quadrant number 1, all of them are positive. Number 2, second quadrant, only sign is positive. The third quadrant, only tan. The fourth, it's only cos, which is positive. Now, what this means is that for tan, which is negative, it can only be either in the second quadrant or the fourth quadrant. So that's how come we go ahead and start with finding, first of all, the angle in the second quadrant. To get that angle, you get 180 degrees, which is the limit for the second quadrant where it ends. So the 180 minus the answer we got, 61.697. And the answer is 118.303. We do the same for the fourth quadrant. So again, this time it's 360, take our 61.697. And the answer, there it is, 298.033 degrees. So those are the two angles. Now the question is, if I take you back to this mass, this assembly, you have the fourth mass. Mathematically, you can either put it down there or up there. If you put it up there, the whole assembly will be very heavy here. And statically, it will not balance out. So the best answer is it has to be below there. Hence, that answer. Meaning, we get the second answer, which is 298.033. The third question was asking for the out of balance force. Now, this force comes from the centrifugal action. So we're talking about the centrifugal force that is going to be generated. How much centrifugal force will come from this? So we go back again and check. The formula for centrifugal force is m w squared r, and hence it has just been rearranged here. We have m4r4 by w squared, because we're looking for the force coming from the out of balance. And first, let's find this omega. So to find the omega, it says 2 pi n over 60. So then we have 2 pi times 2000 divided by 60. And there you have it. Substituting back, M4R4 together are giving us 1.504. Then we multiply by the answer which we just have up there, which is 209.44 squared. Once again, taking this through your calculators, it has to give you 65,973.13 newtons. So you have the three of them. You have the first one we got, which is the out of balance or the imbalance. We got it as 1.504. The second one is at what angle should we put and what mass do we need? That's the mass we need. And this is the angle or the angular position. And lastly, how much force is coming from the imbalance, the amount of force that is coming from the out of balance. We just combine from the formula for centrifugal force and then we get 65,973.13. Now I want the same, I'm looking for the same when it comes to the exercise that have been given here. You try out the same principles and also expand on this, because at some point I'll require you also to go into two planes so that you try out something that looks a bit different, but you expand more on the same. As for today, I guess our lesson first of all end here. If there will be needs, I'll definitely find one more that we can sort out together and post it here once again.